Cut it close. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris. If you like the videos, don't forget to share the videos, like it, smash the like button. Look, even if you're watching on YouTube, go over to Rumble and subscribe over to Rumble and vice versa. Of course, the best way to follow us and what we're doing is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Listen, as Locals saw, it really is now November 17th. It's time to get to a little bit of reality. It's time to listen. Eventually, we call this the silly season for the reason. People act silly. They act a fool. But there's a certain level of delusion in this election cycle that is going to be broken. And it's going to be broken very soon because there are several key dates that are coming up. There's delegate math that honestly, there's a lot of amateurs in American politics, especially on the right, in this new era, in this state, which is a good thing. You know, you want to kind of democratize or whatever, or open up, the political world in your party. You want people to be able to access candidates, access the field in order to influence, of course, who you think is more representative to you. Democrats are a little bit pro ball, all right? And in the era of MAGA, there have been a lot of good, well-meaning people that came in on the right and tried new things. And then there have been a lot of not so well-meaning people. And there's a lot of amateurs who really don't understand this game. And they're all over constantly, day in and day out. They're not providing any kind of positive contribution to the discussion at all. And the hammer's about to come down on them. All right, that's really what's going to happen. It happens every single year. The hammer will come down because reality will hit. They'll get hit in the face with reality and they'll be out of time. So the name of the episode today is Delegate Math, of course, because delegate math is important, and deadlines. And for locals, you probably know where I'm going with this a little bit already, but bear with me because there's more to it. I was going to go through all of these, pages. We'll probably go visit our friends at Real Clear Politics. But I figured let me just throw this up into a quick chart first, and then we're going to talk about what this means, all right? We're now in November. For months and months and months, we heard, well, so-and-so hasn't even announced yet. Okay, maybe there'll be an announcement bump. So-and-so hasn't even been campaigning yet. Okay, that's fair, whatever. Not that contradicts or not that that undoes any of the historically large polling leads, the historically large disparity in key endorsements that are actually predictive. People don't realize in 2016 Trump did win the endorsement race. He drugged people along, but we've been trying to be honest with all of you from the very beginning about the daunting task of defeating Donald Trump in a Republican primary. And we've always been that's not even true. We've been truthful to you. We haven't tried. We've been truthful to you about that and everything else from the beginning. I told you the most recent illusion was that the Kim Reynolds endorsement was going to change the trajectory of the race. The polling data very clearly showed not only was that not going to happen, but it was actually even likely that could backfire. Why? Not 4 days earlier, Morning Consult had the glaring headline, most unpopular governor in the country. At the end of the first, they go by quarters. She was popular until she started openly campaigning next to Ron DeSantis and against the frontrunner. And then her numbers cratered. We're going to talk about someone else's numbers cratering in their own state real soon. It's not that I'm doing a victory lap here, Laura. It's not about a victory. It's about I told you the truth from the beginning, was called the grifter, smeared, and everything else, and they were all wrong. This is why, like I said, people don't really understand. When you tell people the truth, including politicians, you should probably take this lesson. When you're upfront with people and you tell them the truth, as long as you're honest with them and they can trust you, it goes a long way. That's human nature. Even if in the event you're wrong, at least they know that you were trying to be true. It's just people get it wrong. Nobody's perfect. I happen to have a much better record than most, but nobody's perfect. All right. So here we go. Let's just get right into it because there are dates coming up. Dates. Then people have to decide what they want to do. Let's take a look quick at the current situation. Okay. There's Trump and his lead. The source is Real Clear Politics. These are the early state polls, and they are the averages. Okay. Iowa is the make or break strategy for the Never Trump movement, who has now evolved into Team DeSantis. All right. And, Candace Owens, who Laura and I will tell you, not, huge fans of someone, of Candace Owens. I mean, we both admire she's a hard worker. Right. She puts the work in, Laura. She admits she was a liberal and then she has changed her mind. I tend to admire anyone who has the capacity to evolve, grow, conduct introspection. That's what life is all about. So I give her credit with that, but I'm no fan of Candace Owens. And the fact of the matter is, she went on Tucker and said that a lot of that Never Trump contingency ended up being Team DeSantis. And people said, no, that's not true. Oh, it absolutely is true. Never Trump from 2015 and 16 is now Team Ron DeSantis. You want names? Steve Deese, Ken Cuccinelli, Bob Vanderplatz, Jeff Rowe. I mean, can we just keep going? Over and over again. Kurt Schlichter, my friend, was Never Trump. He became later a Trumper, but he wasn't. Now he's Team DeSantis. He's been regurgitating the same line about electability, even though the evidence doesn't support it now for months. And I love him, but it's really getting quite delusional. We can keep going on and on. Of course, Candace Owens was right. And I told people from the beginning, this crowd, these folks, are going to get Ron DeSantis destroyed. Even if he somehow was to eke out a win in Iowa, which is highly unlikely, but even if he was to do that, unfortunately for him, the Iowa or bust strategy, which I coined and told you guys about, will destroy you in the rest of the early states. Why? Because it's built on a principle that believes the Iowa caucus is filled with nothing but, and here, listen, I'm not saying this. This is what those consultants will say when Bob Vanderplatz isn't listening. All right, and I'm not even sure he's earnest either, but this is what they'll say. Backward Christian evangelicals who, if you pass their litmus test on abortion and other social issues, will come out disproportionately high numbers and you'll win the Iowa caucus. Even if you are not a credible candidate for the greater electorate of the state of Iowa, they are the ones who caucus through the wind, through the rain, through the sleet, through the snow, through the cold. They'll brave it all and they'll come out and they will caucus. So if you could just simply deal with them and grift your way through their praise and worship sessions, you'll win the Iowa caucus. The problem for them is that, with the few exceptions in the modern era, George Bush being one of them, when you do that, you make yourself unelectable in the rest of the early states, not to mention unelectable in Iowa for the general election. George Bush is a one modern, and it's modern. We're talking modern. It's 24 years ago. Right? Coming up on 23 years ago, 20 whatever. No, coming up on 24. What the hell am I talking about? It's been a long time. New Hampshire isn't exactly what it used to be in the year 2000. South Carolina sure as hell isn't. Even when you look at the exit poll data, by ideology, it looks like South Carolina and Iowa are closely aligned ideologically, but it's not. When you actually get down to the positions people hold, South Carolina is a lot like New Hampshire. It's, of course, one's northeast, one's south, but South Carolina will vote more in lockstep in the modern era with New Hampshire than it will with Iowa. So you kill yourself, and you have no chance to move forward. Trump is the one candidate who has navigated all of those lanes. He's the only one. Scott Walker may have been, if not for Donald Trump, who came along and ended his nomination. But I remember he is the only other outside of Donald Trump. Scott Walker is the only other modern candidate I have personally ever polled in a Republican nomination that has led in both Iowa and New Hampshire at the same time. Speaking of which, let's look at it again. Here's Trump's leads. Nationally, Trump is now about at 60%. Okay. There are more recent polls with Trump way above 60%. All right. Fox News, 62, just above it. Quinnipiac, 64. Morning Consult, 64. IBD Tip, 60. CBS News, 61. And I'm getting older now, but The Messenger, Harris X, 62. CNN, 61. As you can see, that's really, Quinnipiac has the highest, which was 64. Outside of a little known and not aggregate poll called Clarity Campaigns or Clarity Labs or something, they have been a little bit ahead of the game on other people. All right. And you'll notice in Iowa, this is why they think they can stop Trump. The problem is we're going to take a sneak peek at the Rust Belt poll a little bit later. The consolidation argument is a bust, like I told you it would be. All of these idiots, Mark Thiessen, by the way, again, never Trump, now Team DeSantis. There's another one. The names are so, the names are, Mark Levin has been smarter this time around, but Mark Levin is original never Trump, who supported Ted Cruz and anyone else other than Trump, who then eventually came around, then pretended to be a Trumper for 4 years. Now is again pretending to he's being smart and he's walking the line, but he's donated to DeSantis. His stepson works for him, and he's put out his donation form on his Twitter page. I've never seen him tweet Donald Trump's donation form. All right. So, it's all the same, but, I'm not going to get, it's just, I remember there's so many I remember as time goes on. Anyway, it doesn't even look like the Iowa bust strategy is working. What it is doing is exactly what I told you all it would do. Kill Ron DeSantis' hopes in the state of New Hampshire. What you're looking at in that bar right there represents this, although Trump is higher in some of the more recent polls. RCP average, Trump 45.7, Haley 18.7, Christie 11.3, and DeSantis has cratered now to 7.7. And in fact, in the Emerson poll, wait a minute, let me just go back and look. In one of these polls, DeSantis is actually in 5th. Maybe they haven't aggregated it yet, but he's actually in 5th place in the state of New Hampshire. All right. Why do I care about all this? Iowa is proportional, and I will read you real quick Iowa's proportionality rules. Delegates are proportionally allocated to presidential contenders based on the statewide vote. Each candidate receives candidate's statewide vote, meaning all of the votes together, all right, times 40 divided by the total statewide vote. That's how many delegates when we get closer, I'll start showing you some actual examples. It's not that difficult. It just looks really convoluted. Rounding fractions to the nearest whole number is done in Iowa if there are too few delegates allocated, meaning after you're done doing the math, there's still delegates left over. It can happen. All right. If there are that too few allocated, the candidate nearest the rounding threshold receives the additional delegate. If too many delegates are allocated, the candidate furthest to the threshold loses a delegate. And we will go over this. That is pure proportionality. And in truth, Iowa is one. It's first in the nation. Everyone's going to get delegates. It would be pretty damn lopsided at this point. Trump's lead in the Iowa caucus right now is huge. It's way bigger than Rick Santorum was able to beat Mitt Romney. By the way, everyone focuses I'll get there. It's way bigger than the lead that Bernie Sanders had in both instances. It's way bigger than the lead Barack Obama had. I mean, this is not really that close at all. They don't care about Bob Vander Plaats's endorsement this time. They don't care about their local religious leaders' support this time. They're done with them. If you talk to the people of Iowa, they will simply tell you these people have led them astray over and over and over. When it comes to my spirit, fine. When it comes to my vote, no. They told them last time, Donald Trump can't win, can't win, can't win. He wound up winning their own state by a historically large margin for a modern Republican candidate. You think they believe them anymore? They don't. They're also just simply not talking about issues that those people care about. But let's go over to New Hampshire, where I just read the latest, that average that's up there. Okay. And actually, I'm going to go back and forth, Laura, a little bit, going between delegate math screens with myself and that graphic, if you don't mind. All right. I'm just going to tell you so we don't, go at each other with it. All right. Yeah. So we don't collide. Right. All right. So here is the delegate map we have constructed a while ago. It has constantly been updated as things have changed, but we're basically at the part now where it's in stone. Okay. For New Hampshire, and I will put it up on the map for everybody now. All 22 of the state's delegates to the convention are bound to candidates based on the results of the primary. Candidates must meet a 10% threshold of the statewide vote to qualify for delegates. If thresholds are met, vote share is calculated in proportion to the total statewide. All right. Some states have what we call total qualifying vote in their equations. All right. In the math, delegate math, it means it's not all the votes cast that you're going to use as your total vote variable. It is all of the votes for candidates who actually met the threshold. All right. All right. So in this case, if they had it here, it would be only candidates who got above 10%. If threshold is met, vote share is calculated in proportion to the total statewide. Multiply each percentage by 22 and round to the nearest whole number. If delegates remain, they are awarded to the winner of the statewide vote, which I'm just going to tell you right now is going to be Donald Trump. Okay. So if there are delegates left over, 22, because there are 22 delegates. All right. You see it's a semi-closed primary. We've gotten this. We don't have to get into those rules. The point is the math. If you look here on the average, what you will very clearly see is that Ron DeSantis does not qualify for delegates. Vivek Ramaswamy does not qualify for delegates. Haley has surged to 18.7, and Christie is just above at 11.3. So at this point, all we know for sure is that Donald Trump and Nikki Haley qualify for delegates. Chris Christie is really close, but we don't know. The problem with Chris Christie is that his unfavorability level is so high, it could end up screwing him. If you can't get, how could I put this? Okay, so he's at what, 13%? I think the CNN poll was 14 in the CNN University of New Hampshire poll, which is not a great poll. And before I go on, I'm going to bring something up with Iowa polling too. If your unfavorability rating is over like 80%, and in some polls it is, and actually even over like 70%, and it definitely is in most polls with Chris Christie, you're talking then you got to get 1/3 of the people who have a good impression of you or not a totally negative impression of you. It's a tough haul. Why? Because there's so many other choices. And we told you the consolidation argument was not going to work. Just because people may drop out does not mean they're going to Chris Christie. As we can see in the most recent polling in Iowa, and by the way, that graphic makes him look weaker than he is in New Hampshire. And there was one poll that pushed him down pretty badly in the state of New Hampshire. The truth is, nobody's had him anywhere near those levels in a very long time. Emerson has him at 49 now. Even the Washington Post, which is conducted by Monmouth, not a great poll. Republican primaries, 46%. CNN, it's the University of New Hampshire poll, they blow. I'll be honest with you. They blow. They're even out of the mainstream because they have Trump at 42 and his lead is only 22 points. Everyone else has him around 30-point lead. Depending on what his vote share is, that's where they have. Ballpark. All right. So they're in a totally different bracket. All right, before we move on the next one, because I do, the bottom line is, as these people have dropped out, as Mike Pence, who was a Trump hater, dropped out, as Tim Scott, who really wasn't, and most people expected most of Tim Scott's vote to go to Nikki Haley. I think it's clear that she got it in some places. She didn't get it everywhere, and a lot of them went to Trump. You cannot, this is just, I've gone over this now. I feel like every cycle I have to repeat the same things over and over again. I swear I told Mark Thiessen in 2016, that's not how statistics work. That's not how electoral politics work. It's not how, you cannot deny a candidate every single vote from every single person as people drop out. The consolidation argument was never true. And we've had polling, head-to-head polling from Harris and Quinnipiac and many others for months and months and months that showed us it was not true. Even in the early states, even DeSantis's pollster, even the super PAC that's done work for DeSantis and then started doing work for Tim Scott because they were thinking about jumping ship. They were thinking about abandoning Ron DeSantis and then going to Tim Scott. Now they're probably thinking about going to Nikki Haley. We'll see. I'm not kidding. These people have no loyalties, no bonds or ties. The only thing they're bonded to is the dollar. That's all they're bonded to. Anyway, even they showed it, even though they showed something that was far more favorable to their own candidate. All right, so moving on. Let's go on now. Oh, wait, before we go on, everyone lives and dies by the DMR poll, the Des Moines Register poll. The truth is, the Des Moines Register poll hasn't performed since 2008, dude. I'm so sick of this. Everyone dismisses the civics poll by the University of Ohio, or the University of Ohio poll, which is conducted by civics. The only reason that averages were accurate in 2020 was because of that poll. Go and look at the RCP averages from 2020 on the Democratic side, the Republican side. Go look at 2016. The DMR poll was wrong in 2020. The DMR poll was wrong in 2016. The DMR poll was wrong in 2012. DMR poll has not been right since 2008. You know who nailed the Democratic caucus in 2020? Civics. The University of Iowa poll outperformed the Iowa poll. The Des Moines Register poll has good PR. That's what it has. And two things happened last presidential cycle that I'm just never going to forget about. And it's a shame because Ann Seltzer is somebody that was highly respected when I was coming up. People are like, you want to learn how to poll? Listen to Ann. You want to learn how to poll? Look at what Ann does. Dissect reverse engineer what Ann Seltzer does, right? Laura will tell you, when I was a student, I really liked Ann a lot. Right, Laura? Right? I admired the hell out of the woman. I'm like, wow, she gets it. Because polling really is part art, and Ann had an art. At least back then she did. And then two things happened in 22 that really, really bothered me. And I was willing for a long time to overlook the polling record misses. Why? Because in 2016, she wasn't like terribly wrong. She had Trump up by a little. Cruz wound up eking it out. Why? Was not because of her vote preference. She was right about that. She understated the share of evangelical vote and understated first-time caucus goers. And that's what happened. She was right about the numbers themselves. She just modeled it wrong. In 2020, she spiked a poll because of the objections of a Democratic candidate. Objections that were not credible enough for any credible pollster to spike a poll. It was jointly conducted with the Des Moines Register and CNN. And it was spiked over Pete Buttigieg objecting because he had heard one voter didn't offer his name during the interview. And when they did the investigation, they found out that one interviewer allegedly had her screen. And most of these interviewers looking at a screen, folks, as they're interviewing you. They're on the screen. They have a little headset in. That's what they're doing. And they're rolling down the questionnaire. And I guess her Zoom settings were zoomed in, and Pete Buttigieg was cut off the list, and she missed him on a couple of interviews. So what? You don't spike a whole poll because of that. She did, which drew criticisms, sharp criticisms, from pollsters from both sides of the aisle. Patrick Murray from the Monmouth poll was agreeing with me. That's how bad that move was. And to me, you lose credibility in my eye when you let what you know to be already a leftist organization and a political candidate bully you into dropping the results. And by the way, Team Biden was also very much in favor of spiking that poll and also advocated for doing so. Why? Because Biden was losing. Hat tip Mike Cernovich, by the way, who got the poll. He got it and was like, you want to see it? Because I'm like, I don't know, guys. This looks like BS to me. This doesn't smell right. Even before we found out the whole story. And he was like, dude, I got it. You want to see it? You're right. They spiked it because it looks bad for them. Disgusting. Disgusting. Fast forward to the general election. Robert Barnes and I are sitting in the summertime, polling Ohio, polling Iowa. And he's like, hey, let's see what we got. We're looking at, as we're looking at the state of Iowa, which at the time I think was like Trump plus 6 to 8 or something ridiculous. It was not close. She drops a poll showing it very close. It's a battleground state. It was never a battleground state. Then at the last minute, she herds to Trump plus 7. And I'm telling you, it was never Biden plus 2. Never. So between those two things, I'm sorry. I'm not doing the DMR coat riding train. I'm just not on it anymore. The truth is, if you go back and look, take 5 minutes and go research who was more accurate, and you'll see it was actually the University of Iowa. Why does that matter? They're showing a lot different of a race here. The University of Iowa poll that just came out the other day, yesterday, I believe it was, showed a very different picture. Trump 54, DeSantis 18, Haley 12. Scott was still in that poll at 2. Ramaswamy 6, Christie 3, Burgum 1. We did not poll in the Rust Belt poll either Tim Scott or, of course, Mike Pence. Been a long time for Mike Pence. They're both out of the Rust Belt poll and have been. And I will tell you right now, Trump is above 50 in Iowa. All right, I'm just going to blow the lid off, okay? Oh, God, Rich is Trump above 50 in Iowa. He's a Trumper. No, Trump is above 50 because Trump is above 50. Is he? I don't think he's going to be that high when we're done waiting, but he's above. And I'll show you. And I will say this. It does look like Haley kind of fizzled out a little bit. More of Tim Scott's vote went to Trump than I thought it was going to. It just didn't go to Haley in the numbers that, for instance, you may have expected in South Carolina. And which I expect to still happen in South Carolina. Tim Scott, a lot of his numbers will go to Haley. However, she does look like she has fizzled out in Iowa. Now, Iowa is a caucus, and I would strongly suggest everybody read Seth Levy's tweet. He put up a tweet. He is 100% correct. There are people who legitimately like Ron DeSantis in Iowa, and that's why they're supporting him. But there are a lot of people who do not. Ron DeSantis' support, his core support, is usually about 15 to 20% of the vote share you see him get. That's it. The rest of them could go back and forth. By the way, even to Trump. Majority to Trump. But the people remaining are really just never Trumpers. So if DeSantis, and Haley continue this back and forth, I actually do think that when they go to the caucus and they fight, and that's what happens at a caucus, it's really cool. I hope one day to show Laura what an Iowa caucus looks like. I fear that she wants to go so bad. I fear it's cold, baby. I'm not going to lie. Do you want to pop in here? You can. It's cold, baby. It's so cold. Right? Anyone been to an Iowa caucus?
I
I'm not
want to go so bad because it's like that's how it's supposed to be. That's how it was once upon a time. Fighting it out between. Oh man, I so want to do this so bad. It's gonna be so epic, and I'm just gonna sit there with like permagrin on my face, just smiling and watching it all. Oh,
And I'll tell you, there's a lot of good food to eat there. It's just really, really frozen. Here's why I think NL, I think you and Seth are maybe right, even though, and I'll see, I mean, I could peek it. We could peek at it and I can show you what it looks like in Iowa right now. For some reason, I was having a hard time combining all of the modes together. I don't know why. First time caucus goer is going to be huge. Going to be huge. Huge. We do have DeSantis and what is it, online? I think it's the online component. I may have it reversed, but they're pretty close. DeSantis and Haley. But I think Team Haley has an argument at a caucus to make, and DeSantis doesn't. DeSantis's road is Iowa, and that's it. He's done. He's killed himself everywhere else. Look at the polls. It's not me. I told you it would happen. A lot of people threw a lot of shade my way over it, but I was right. You were wrong. You really owe me an apology. I know you won't because you're not big enough of men to give me one. But you killed him. Look at, you killed him. The only other significant vote share he has in any other state is in Florida, and he's getting trounced by 40 points. By the way, the Florida Atlantic University poll completely confirms our poll in Florida. Does it not? We were the first poll to show Trump opening up a huge lead in Florida. And we were the first poll, not only, I mean, we can go back and look at it. You'll see there was Florida, not Florida Atlantic, North Florida, I think. North Florida. Or Florida, yeah, something like that. I think it's North Florida. Had DeSantis up at one point. We never did. It was close, but he was never up. And then we were the first ones to show Trump starting to stretch his legs. 13 points, 18 points, 20-something points, 35 points, ultimately to 40 now points, which is where he is on the average of polls. Doesn't matter because Florida's winner take all anyway. It's just another embarrassment, which we might as well get to right now. Ron DeSantis has less than a month to drop out and remove himself from the ballot in Florida. If he does not, before December 12th, his name will appear on the ballot regardless, and he will be humiliated. That will result in a lame duck governor who gets trampled over by the legislature, hit every day by the media. It is not good for the state of Florida. Well, Rich, didn't he killed himself already? Maybe, yeah. And honestly, he probably already did. He did. However, you can kill yourself and kill your political ambitions and not be humiliated, or you could kill yourself, your political ambitions, and then be humiliated. And then go back to the state neutered, like sit on the bucket. And then that's bad for the state of Florida. So again,
viewers say, could you please not bang that table?
The delegate math and the deadlines are going to break the delusion one way or another. It's going to happen. And these, I have nothing good to say about them. They're just nasty people. They're hard. Folks, if you've been following me for a while, you know they have burned every bridge. That's why they are where they are now. They have smeared everybody. They have lied about everyone. They have attacked everyone. They've misrepresented themselves every turn. It's just tragic. It's a Greek tragedy. It's like a friggin' Shakespeare. It's like a work of Shakespeare. Yeah, first it went from et to, it's going to end like Othello. Or Macbeth. It's going to end like Macbeth at this point. I mean, that's not going to bode well for the state of Florida. It's not. Not for the people of the state. That's the saddest part about it. All right, let's do one more real quick with South Carolina, and then we'll get in and roll into California. South Carolina, just to give you the latest on this, Winthrop has Trump at 52, CNN has Trump at 53, but the average still has Trump at 49.3 to 18.8, DeSantis 10.5, 8.8 for Scott, Ramaswamy 3.80. Okay, that's what those bars represent. Now let's go back to our map. Okay, in the map, delegate math matters. We're getting close enough now where you can't just read the polls. You have to understand what the polls mean when it comes to the rules. This is how the game works. And if you're a viewer of mine, if you're a follower of mine, you're going to be a lot more educated than anybody else. The time for reading the headlines for the polls alone is over. Now comes the time of reality. All voters may participate in this. 21 district delegates are to be allocated to candidates based on the results of each of the 7 congressional districts, with 3 districts allocated based on winner-take-all rules. 29 at-large delegates are allocated to the statewide winner. There is no threshold for that, obviously. The winner will get the additional 29, but for the 21 district delegates that are up, you have to look at each of the 7 congressional districts individually. If people do not meet that threshold, it doesn't matter because they're based on winner take all. There isn't a single congressional district where anybody leads. Not a single one, other than Trump. So Trump will turn, once again, South Carolina into a winner take all. South Carolina years ago had this kind of more like proportional system. When the RNC rules changed, it did what a lot of states did, move into what some people call a hybrid system. We call it a winner take most, out of deference to the presidential green papers, which have been around a lot longer than most of their people who have all their little interactives all over the internet trying to explain their delegate projections. That's why I told you be wary of delegate projections. It appears that at least 2 of those websites do not understand the rules. There will be no other delegates allocated to anybody else with the current polling where it is. Even Nikki Haley is not going to win a congressional district at this point. Now, maybe with Scott's vote out of the way, maybe that'll happen. But when you have the candidate, the front runner now, Winthrop, 52, which is an increase. They just polled it at the beginning of October. They're going to poll every month, Winthrop now. They had him not long ago at 41. Now they have him at 52. CNN's got him at 53. I mean, Trafalgar, Robert lives in Georgia now, but he's originally from South Carolina. And I don't know if you know this little fun fact about Robert Haley. He was had a poll the South and South Carolina. So he knows South Carolina. It'd be interesting to see when his next poll is coming out. Maybe I'll hit him up and ask him because he had Trump. He was the first one to show that Trump was now back to creeping toward 50. And he had him at 48 right before everyone else had Trump break through the 50% mark. And by the way, it was always there anyway. Between the first and second choicers, you could see it. All right, it's 12:52. I want to move on to the last but not least, the state of California. Let me load up my individual little polls here. Big polls this week out of the state of California. Big polls. Huge. We've had Trump in the 50s for a little bit. We had Trump in, I think, 52 or 53 ourselves. But now the PPIC poll, which was conducted at the beginning, it ended October 19th. That was the final field work date. It was a 2-week poll. I don't like that crap. I don't like 2-week polls. I can understand a week, but 2 weeks, I don't like. Anyway, they had Trump at 53, DeSantis at 12, and Haley at 9. This is one state, and you can see it by the graphic, where DeSantis still is holding on a little bit, the second place. The LA Times Berkeley IGS poll that was finished at the end of October was a big bombshell. It was Trump plus 45 with the race for president close. which is just insane. But that's it. I mean, they had Trump at 57, DeSantis at 12, Haley again at 9, same thing with the bottom. So everyone else is shuffling out. As you saw Pence and the rest start to exit the race, that's what Trump gobbled them up. Ramaswamy, 3%. Christie, 2. Scott, 1. Now Scott's out. So what happens when the two of them have dropped out? Oh, and you also saw Perry jump out at that point. He did get some votes in these polls. Emerson now today just dropped another one, the most recent one out of California. And oh my God, it's Trump 52. This is why Jessica Patterson tried to rob Trump's delegate math in California. And I'm not going to rehash that, but you're welcome. 63% for Trump, 11% for DeSantis, 5% for Haley, 3% for Ramaswamy, 4% for Christie, 2% for Hutchinson, 1% for Doug Burgum, who, by the way, is even down considerably in his own state. So, Doug, I honestly don't know what it is you're doing. Running for a cabinet position? I don't know. You seem like a very nice guy. People tell me very good things about you. It's one of those ridiculous things. Like the time we're living in is too damn serious of a time for these like personal ambition attempts. Like, wouldn't you agree, folks? Is now the time to pull this kind of crap? Is it really? Let's look at the delegate math in the state of California. Now that things have changed, the GOP in California, Jessica Patterson, chairwoman, did propose a rule because of the primary date being moved up that would have removed the winner-take-all provision. However, it was defeated amid outrage. No thanks to President Trump's own advisors like Dick Morris, who was totally clueless on his appearance with Peter Navarro. Totally clueless. I don't understand, Laura, how some of these people get the gigs they get. They don't understand this stuff. I really don't get it. However, it was defeated, and now we're back to the statewide majority threshold, as well as the district majority threshold. If you look at the Emerson poll, and hell, you don't even need to. Even the LA Times Berkeley poll, the IGS poll, and even when PPIC had Trump at 53, he was still leading in every single congressional district. The one, I believe, the Los Angeles, there was one in the LA area where he was rounded up to 50. It was like 49.6. That was his weakest performance. But when you were in the 60s, you're winning every district. And why does that matter? Because Jessica Patterson tried to rob Trump of his delegates by doing proportional allocation at the state level with the at-large means state, okay? Statewide. At the at-large delegates, she wanted proportional like Iowa, which would have diluted someone's massive win, even a massive win like this. But then also, back when they proposed the rule change, it was expected that Ron DeSantis, who she supports, all right, she went up there during the Anaheim speech with the shit-eating grin on her face. Truth is, she can't stand Donald Trump. All right, she's clapping away like a seal because she's got no damn choice now. She basically had no choice but to kiss the damn ring and move on. She's going to bide her time and wait until she has a chance to throw a knife in his back. And as soon as he presents her those shoulder blades, boy, she's digging in. Watch. And twisting. But in any event, she can't right now. But she believed, and the consulting class, they call themselves conservatives. We conservatives. They try to pretend like they're Reagan-like conservatives. You have to understand how California Republicans talk. They're a very different breed than the rest of the party around the country. And when they say we conservatives, they really mean just rhinos. Total rhinos who hate insurgent candidates. They hate the true conservative wing of the party, and they hated it before MAGA came along, the Tea Party wing, and they really hate MAGA. Anyway, they believe Ron DeSantis was going to win the districts in and around LA, the Bay Area. There are more of them because the population is concentrated. So despite the fact that there are more Republicans, let's say in California 20, Bakersfield, Kevin McCarthy's district, which David Giglio was running for to beat him, and he's going to retire anyway. And they're going to try to throw somebody in there who's McCarthy 2.0 to stop David from representing a R plus 30 seat. Watch. Mark my words. Mark my words. There should be no rhinos in R+20 and above seats. None. There are no moderate Democrats in D+20 and above seats. There aren't. Anyway, I digress. They thought he would do better in those areas, so they wanted to do away with the winner-take-all rule in those district delegate allocations, because that would have allowed the more rhino-like candidate to rack up delegates disproportionate. Even if the MAGA candidate, more conservative candidate, winds up winning statewide, it wouldn't matter. What that does is dilute the vote of Bakersfield. It dilutes the vote of the Central Valley. It dilutes the vote of the remaining conservative areas of California. That's what they were attempting to do. All right. And they're full of crap, and they lie to you. And I caught them in that lie. So did Laura Loomer. So did David Giglio. And the only reason that these rules remain as they are today is because I got a phone call asking me, what the hell is going on? Who do we believe? And I told them the truth. They were pissed. And the people in California got some really serious phone calls. And then they caved. And if it wasn't for like Laura and David elevating that conversation, they absolutely would have done it. Anyway, so that's where we are now. And if you look at that state, which is the last one on the list here, I'm not sure. No, that's updated. You can see there does appear to be a limit to Haley's rise, at least right now. And I know it's 12:50. We're going to take a real quick break and then take a sneak peek at the Rust Belt poll. There does appear to be a limit to her rise. We'll see. We shall see whether or not that remains the case. I'm not sure. I do think that people like Seth have a good argument that if it's, especially in caucuses, if the Haley people go to the caucus site that night and say, he's got nowhere to go, he can't win New Hampshire, he can't win South Carolina, I'm the only viable never Trumper. If that is the case, it's possible they absolutely can be convinced to move from DeSantis to her. Now, the phone, see, it's like weird how this is going to go. Online looks real close. It looks like DeSantis and Haley are basically tied. On the phone, it doesn't. It looks like DeSantis has a more significant lead. And then you realize why. The phone is like more friendly, even though, nothing's really friendly to DeSantis anymore. But the phone is more in more friendly, mode for him. It's more educated, even though it's more conservative. Okay. And it is. Folks, graduate degree this morning, when I looked at last night's responses for Iowa over the phone, graduate degrees were like 20%. It's ridiculous. Now, that bodes well or better for DeSantis. The problem is they're losing every single age group to him. They're just losing every age group to him anyway. So I don't really know, where they go from here. When we're talking about, well, he's the better alternative to Trump, she's the better alternative to Trump. This one's got a better argument. Neither one of them have an argument that they can get above 50 against him. It just because it doesn't exist. And I haven't been telling you people this for months because I personally want it to be true. I've been telling you for months because it's true. It is true. So there we are. Oh, God, Laura. California, by the way, second poll now showing California pretty damn close. This is now two polls showing California in like mid double digits. Emerson is only Biden plus 13. Why is that important? Because, Trump is always understated in California, but it's a bloodbath. It's a 30-point Democratic win. It's a bloodbath. When you throw a third-party candidate into the mix, it's only plus 12 for Biden. And it's not just that Biden is falling. It's that Trump's vote share is increasing a little bit. So, yeah, That's just crazy to me. But then you have some white states like Washington and Oregon that are they're roughly the same. Washington, the Washington Post just did, I believe, it was Biden plus 12. So you could really see these non-white shifts taking over what is moving in what rightward direction and what is not. Speaking of which, when we come back from the break, before we get digging into the data or I'll show you some of the raw results if you want. I'll show you last night. Now, these are slightly outdated already, but it's not going to be wildly different. I'm going to show you the 6 states that make up the Rust Belt poll, what they were in the final of 2020, where we're at now, and they have shifted a little bit locals, but not all that much. All right. It's remarkable, and it's probably the one area around the country where it's predominantly white, yet you see still rightward shifts. In some of these other states like California, where it's not white, the shift is coming from non-whites. And then you can look at other Western states, especially the Pacific Northwest, like Washington and Oregon, where these are just white liberal states, and that shift is yet to really take effect in that area of the country. They're just super, super, super left-wing. It's like you're asking for Louisiana at the presidential level. Or no, there's more than that. Like Wyoming, even though Biden won and the country shifted slightly to the left since 2016, or supposedly, Wyoming didn't really shift. You have to look at some of those states like that because they're incredibly liberal. Are they as Democratic as Wyoming is Republican? No, but I'm using that as a pretty key example. All right, it's 12:55. Let's take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll dig into that. Also, Laura, you grab at least some questions here from the Q&A. You did. Okay, cool. I'll try to prioritize, the whatnots first.
Do not doubt my skills.
I got you. I saw it. I got you. All right, here we go. Let's take a real quick break. We'll come back in a hot minute. All right. I'll tell you what, guys, this is a no-brainer. An absolute. Did you know that close to 90% of pharmaceuticals in the U.S. are produced outside of the United States? Ask yourself what happens when the next global crisis strikes. Countries clamp down on exports. They stockpile. We saw that, by the way, during COVID. The price of imports rise. Pharmaceutical shelves in America are empty. Did you know that approximately 250 million prescriptions are issued every year in the U.S. for amoxicillin alone? It's a staggering number, and statistically speaking, you or someone in your family is going to need a prescription for amoxicillin in the next year, whether we have a supply chain shortage or not. That's where the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit comes in. This kit holds 8 potentially life-saving prescription medications inside a compact and convenient case that every single American should keep stockpiled in their home. Antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics, meds like amoxicillin, ivermectin, the Z-Pack, plus a 22-page guidebook with instructions on safe use for each medication. Everything from tick bites to COVID to bioterror events, every scenario is covered, making it a doctor in a box. These prescription emergency kits are in huge demand right now. Head to twc.health/TPP. The link is in the description. Again, it's twc.health/TPP and grab yours before they run out of stock again. One more time, twc.health/TPP. The code TPP for the People's Pundit saves you 10% at checkout. Well, we've been watching more and more war and destruction these last few weeks. And who's to say when the next supply chain disruption is going to be at our doorstep? Be safe, be prepared, and stay well. Kits are only they're only available in the US of A. All right. It's one of the more exciting sponsors. I mean, we love all, but when COVID happened, I thought that we would finally take this opportunity to discuss some real structural challenges that we have had becoming a service sector or largely a services economy. We were once a massive powerhouse because we were a goods producing economy, manufacturing, right? Innovation. That's just not the case anymore, sadly. And under Donald Trump, the reason why wages began to soar the way they did against real costs is because the type of jobs being created were better, higher paying jobs. They were in those areas. And I really had hoped that we would get into the area of pharmaceuticals and other things. There's more than this: precious metals, certain kinds of, certain things that are used in the defense industry. PPE, we simply cannot rely on the nation, because a lot of it does come from them. The nation who unleashed the last pathogen on us that became a global pandemic. You can't rely on them to come to your aid when you need it. And in fact, they did not. And it's so sad the media are pieces of shit. Unserious, disgusting, scumbag people. Because instead of making this a political issue to try to use to defeat a president, they should have taken this as an opportunity to have a real national discussion about that. And they didn't. And not only did they not, they constantly suck up all the oxygen out of the room with their nonsense narratives that it's so hard to break through that noise. And that's all it is noise. It's so hard to break through that noise to talk about what matters. And I don't give a damn what's after your last name. An R, a D, an I. I don't really care. An L, a G, whatever. How could you not see the wisdom to this? How could you not? You want to be relying on China the next time there's a pandemic? Come on. All right. Let me do the margins first, and then we'll take a look at some of the numbers. The reason why I'm going to give you, and locals, you guys know the rules, right? So I'm not terribly uncomfortable sharing stuff with you early, because you know what I am saying when I'm like, look, this has to be processed. It will change, right? So the primary and caucus numbers are screened a lot more. So you'll see higher vote shares with them. We're trying to cast a very large net right now. So you see, like, most of these candidates are around 40% in the general election polling, because we want these people who are not high propensity voters. We want the non-likely voter. I want to study them for a while before this election. So I'm doing it. They'll be knocked out. So the vote shares for another candidate, for instance, or undecided, will fall. And the two-party vote shares and the other, vote shares from other candidates will rise. You see it in the primary now, because those are screened, but you don't see them in the general election numbers. We haven't done it. This first survey was not designed to be like that. Number one, I wasn't being strict with the voting screens with the generals. I was with the primaries. So we have to take that into consideration. Why? Because they're coming. They're coming. 6 months from now, things will be different. Wait until this debate. Wait until this one. Wait until you put 3 fingers of pudding in your mouth. I mean, it's here. The time has come. All right, this idea it's early still. It's not early. And it wasn't early months ago. Everything was highly predictive at that point. But now, it's literally knocking at your door. People are more focused now than they will be a month from now. Understand that. People are like, oh, people aren't paying attention. They've been paying attention. More so now than they will be in a couple of weeks to a month, until the New Year's up. Till the New Year's up. By the way, I want to talk about the Christmas poll, but I don't think we're going to have time to do that today. I want to bring back the Christmas poll. I want to have fun again doing this, folks. I had fun doing this Rust Belt poll. I told Laura, they're making this unfun now. These like miserable people. It's just not fun anymore. And I want to have fun, because I loved it, right, Laura? I loved it. I loved polling. I still do. I don't know. I got to get more creative, because the Rust Belt poll is my creation. I thought it was really cool. I had a lot of fun with it when it first came. This survey, I had probably the most fun I've had with any survey in a while. And I want to bring back the Christmas poll, which I think is super fun. Not everybody qualifies for it, which you'll understand and you'll see. But it was something we used to do every year where we would just kind of attach some things to the national poll. But if you qualified during the national poll for the Christmas poll, we drag you out. Right? Plus, the Christmas poll doesn't have to be, it's not a registered voter poll. It is an adult sampled poll. So you can have voters in it, obviously, but it's really cool. All right, so let's go ahead and show you what we got here. And then if you don't mind a minute, actually take a sip of water and a vape and give me 2 seconds. I've been talking nonstop since this started here. Wonder what we're going to do for dinner today, Laura.
Don't even get me started. I got lots to do.
No, I know. That's what I was thinking. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think the kids have anything to do today, right? Oh, you do. That's right. You're leaving me again this weekend.
He asked me I'm leaving him. Like,
You're leaving me again.
On Saturday, Richie, calm down. You're going to be all right.
I'm going to withdrawals. Laura withdrawals.
Hey, listen. Let's be
Brewe
real.
withdrawals. And Brewe withdrawals. I like my girls.
Sleeping in anything other than my bed is not a fun situation. I may be getting more.
I know that. I hate traveling. You know that. By the way, I was just invited to some shindig next month in California, and I didn't reply yet, but I guess they don't know any better. I have a strict no travel during the holidays rule. I broke that rule for the Kari Lake trial in Arizona. One, I broke it voluntarily. And I don't plan on doing that again in a very long time, unless there would have to be some extenuating circumstances. And then 2, they could have subpoenaed my ass anyway, so I might as well just went voluntarily, right? All right, so what does this shout? Let me read this. Bear with me first, and then we'll go through it, okay? The Rust Belt poll presidential vote preference shift from November 2020 to November 23. The graph below represents the current shift in presidential vote preference for the 6 states surveyed by the Rust Belt poll from November 20 to November 23. Not days, the year 2020 to 2023. Positive values represent the margins for Republican Donald J. Trump, and negative values represent margins for Democrat Joseph R. Biden. All 6 states have experienced a rightward shift juxtaposed to 3 years ago. Big data poll at this point. This has to be updated. But again, don't expect mega change here. Big data poll interviewed at this point 6,359 registered voters. And what you see up there right now is for 5,583 likely voters. We're now way above that. And well, not way, but we're significantly above that. And we're still going. I have to go and take a look after the show what I think. In Iowa, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin since November 15th, 2023. The results for November 23 were lightly weighted for gender, age, race, and ethnicity, education, geography, and region. And when I say lightly, I mean lightly. Results for November 2020 represent the final Rust Belt poll conducted by Big Data Poll for the Inside the Numbers Election 2020 Public Polling Project. Finals results for November 23 are subject to revision and are expected to change when fieldwork and weighting are complete. Now, this poll would be a great chance next week for me to teach you what the hell multi-regression post-stratification means. All right? Multi-regression analysis, and post-stratification. There are different methods for how people model. Some people even use post-stratification for their national polling. All right? There's rake weighting, which is what our go-to almost, not all the time, but almost all the time, unless we otherwise specify, otherwise, we use a tactic called rake weighting. And what that does is the applying of weight variables individually, one at a time, until the population becomes representative of the target population. The sample, becomes representative of the target population. If you do not use the, let me put this a different way. The variables that are not being used to rake weight, will be left to adjust. So let's say I rate for I rake weight for males and it comes in at 46.52, but I want it to be 48.52. So we apply that. Everything else will change. Everything. It'll take basically what we have in our sample that we have collected, and it will, make those changes to income. It'll make those changes to education, right? So with rake weighting, sometimes you may not need, based on as you apply the weights individually, you may not need to change other variables. It may end up being right on the money as you're applying those adjustments. Now, you can keep things fixed, and it's essentially like, for instance, let's say we're going to rate gender, but region is good, and I don't want it to change, my regional weights all that much. Then that's different. And then finally, well, it depends. Some people do likely voter models first. Some people do them after. Everyone's a little bit different. But the more complicated stuff, like you saw from Stack Data, I think it's called, that Tableau thing we went over on Monday, that's multi-regression post-stratification. And what it's basically trying to do is use the information that you collected in the sample, right? And certain things about the population, and you want to use what you collect to estimate the results for the population that people you didn't speak with. All right. So you didn't collect answers for. It's really that simple. And people say, well, Rich, isn't that what weighting is? Yeah, kind of. Very, very similar. It is. But in this case, first of all, it allows you to be much more granular. All right. So that's why they were able to give county level estimates. They know what the demographic composition of Macomb County is, right? They probably even got a bunch of responses from Macomb, not a whole lot, but a bunch, and the surrounding area. And they're going to use what the let's say the white working class, they have their vote preference. They will then apply that to the population in Macomb to try to estimate what college versus non-college, how those people are voting. They will take that and they will basically apply those margins of what they found to the entire population in Macomb County, and then they'll understand how Macomb County is going to vote. All right, it's really cool. But this would be a really good poll to do that with, because they interviewed 15,000 people and did multi-regression post-stratification across the country. We're going to be over 6,000 qualified, validated voters when we're done for 6 different states. So we would have more information. We also have their counties, which is cool. So we're gonna probably give you state by state here. Like, I may even wait a state today and show you individually what one state is. Why? Because Iowa, Minnesota, not so much Wisconsin, but Minnesota and Iowa, there are smaller populations, Minnesota being about 7 to 8% of the total vote out of these 6 states. That's it. Minnesota and Wisconsin are only about 12, but Minnesota is so different. You have the Twin Cities area, which is so different from the rest of the state. And then you have because you have the Iron Range in the Northeast, and then you have the Northwest, which is part of Iron Range too, of course, but it's conservative Iron Range area. Into when you get to the West, it just gets and fall out of Iron Range completely. It's totally different. You have the Southwest, which is conservative as well. You have the Southeast, which has a lot of Republican leaning counties, and then like pockets of blue, like Olmsted. It's a very, very difficult state to poll, and it's a very diverse state, even though it's still predominantly white. Ethnically, it's very diverse. Norwegians, Scandinavians, or Norwegians, Swedish, excuse me. I keep doing that. Scandinavians are Scandinavians. Norwegians, Swedish, Danish, English. A lot of people are identifying as flat up American, which the census allows people to do, but they're really combined with English as well in the census. And we can see Germans, Irish, right? Italian. I mean, there's a lot, so much. And That's going to help. That's why I asked that ethnicity question across the board, not just for people who chose white. Because if we do multi-level regression and post-stratification next week, ethnicity is going to be huge. At least that was for us. It was for Robert and I in 2020. Robert was like, you know what? If you're going to do this, you should ask about ethnicity. We should gather this, this data over time. He was right. It was 100% correct. I'm so glad I listened to him and I did that. It's more than just about race, especially when you're collecting such large samples. All right. The results for November 2020 represent the final Rust Belt polls conducted by Big Data Poll for Inside the Numbers, and the 23 is subject to revision, but it's not going to. I just looked at the total before again, and it's roughly right the same as it was. I mean, I gave you whole numbers rounded here, but I actually think it's the overall, Laura, I think it's 5 to the T. I'll check in a second, but in our final Rust Belt poll in 2020, overall, and this isn't margins, remember this, it's not Biden and Trump's margins in 2020, from the actual results. This is from our polling. We're comparing apples to apples here, not apples to oranges. In some states, we understated Biden. In some states, we overstated Biden, vice versa with Trump. We want to still stay to apples to apples. In Iowa, our final was Trump plus 7 before we took it off the table. That was it. Iowa is now Trump plus 13. In Ohio, it was, again, so what does that mean? It's a 6-point shift. Damn it, I dropped some. A 6-point, I dropped something. I dropped my vaporizer thing. 6-point shift in Iowa, and it's actually one of the biggest ones. Surprised me a little bit. Why? Because it's like, how much more blood can you squeeze from the stone, man? Right? How much more? And there's also something that really jumped out at me. There are still people that Laura and I and others conducting the poll, we could not get to take the damn survey. All right. There's still people who are telling us, like we heard in 2020, I'll tell you I'm voting for Trump, but beyond that, I don't want to do this interview. Are there people who said Biden 2020 and hung up the phone? Biden 2024, whatever, and hung up the phone? I think in the entire sample, it's like 2. This frequently happens to us with Trump voters. So is it conceivable that Trump is still he has always performed better than he's polled, but he has never polled this strong. So there really are 2 options. The polls are actually kind of right this time, or he overperforms again, and it's an even bigger bloodbath than it looks like it is right now. I'm telling you, even though the social bias signals aren't being thrown like crazy when we include them in the surveys, which I didn't in this one, because they weren't being thrown in the national polls or in some of the other state polls we've done recently. But there are people who still don't want to take it. And I have to think, when the FBI kicks indoors, folks, of supporters, hunts down veterans, veteran supporters like dogs on Veterans Day weekend, I've got to think that injects a bias. And it does appear that we got more unwilling participants with Trump supporters than we did with Biden supporters. All right. But again, in Iowa, it's like I didn't expect that to be one of the bigger shifts because he already won Iowa by such a significant margin. Iowa's a 13-point lead right now for Trump, basically. In Ohio, we had Trump up by 9. He won it by 8. And by the way, we had him up by 7 in Iowa. He won it by roughly 8. And in Ohio, we had him up by 9, and now he's up by 14. Trump is leading with every single age group in Iowa and Ohio. Every single one. Doesn't matter if you do the more basic age groups, 18 to 29, 30 to 44, 45 to 64, 65 plus, or You do the detail, 18 to 24, 25 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 64, 65 to 74, 75 plus. He leads in every single one. He did lead in every age group in 16. He did not in both of those states in 2020. Michigan, we had Biden up by 2. That was pretty damn close to the so-called official result. And now we have Trump up by 2. And actually, I think that's grown by 2. I think it has. Don't hold me to it. We'll see. Again, waiting takes time. It's a very detailed thing. We'll see. But that was a 4-point shift in the state of Michigan. The shift in the state of Minnesota is massive. We had Biden up by 10. He won by 7. So we overstated Biden by 3 points. I don't know if this is going to hold. But as of the last time we updated this, Biden has a 1-point lead in Minnesota. That's it. The impact of RFK is a little bit funny. If you put just RFK on the ballot, it actually hurts Trump more in Minnesota. And then Biden's lead extends to 4 points. If you have Kennedy and Cornel West and Jill Stein, then it's back to, I believe, maybe it's like a 2-point lead or something. So Trump was actually doing better in Minnesota in a head-to-head than he was with the third-party candidates. I find that very interesting. I do also see, at least in some areas, some evidence of RFK slipping a little bit. If you generically ask about another candidate, the number is huge and it's ridiculous. But then when you actually ask him about RFK, he falls. So, for instance, let me just give you the online number for RFK right now, and then I'll check the phone as well. So, with RFK and then a generic, third-party candidate, he only gets 7%. The other third-party candidate that's generic actually gets more than RFK. All right. Oh, shit. That's just, excuse me. Sorry. Hold on. That was just one state. Hold on. Let me go back to it. Hurry up. Let's go. Remind me to tell you about the I cannot be persuaded to change my mind numbers, please. Don't let me forget that. Yeah. So RFK is getting 9%. Roughly the same as the generic another third-party candidate gets when they're all in the ballot together. This is, again, just the Rust Belt states on the online component. With RFK and Cornel West and Jill Stein, RFK actually rose a little bit to 10. West gets like 2. Jill Stein gets like 2. Interesting. The Rust Belt is definitely getting more Republican. We had it slightly... it's getting more Republican when Trump's on the damn ballot. I don't know that that's the case without him. But I think our overall Rust Belt poll was D+3 in 2020. And this one is about even, close to even. And Trump that's why I can't wait to get into some of these numbers and start waiting, Laura. Trump led in Pennsylvania when it was still tracking raw at like D+4 or something. Do you remember what I said? I can't remember. Interestingly, first-time caucus goers, the percentage is a lot higher than first-time primary voters. A lot higher. So primary vote, first time, it's going to be about 15% in overall the Rust Belt. Whereas there's going to be 40% first-time caucus goers, which is huge. That happened in 16, by the way. Big injection of younger people. And let me just see. And this is just online. I got to look at the other one. What did I just say I was going to check with the rest of it? Oh, right. Kennedy's vote share in the rest of it. Let's see. It's really not terribly different. We're not getting these huge numbers for Kennedy like other people got, like the New York Times. Which is interesting. The New York Times didn't get big numbers for a generic another candidate. We did.
but they got huge numbers for Robert Kennedy, and we did not. So when we asked, and funny, they're all phone. Well, in our phone, the generic third-party candidate gets 12% in the head-to-head. But Robert Kennedy only gets 6 when he's added with the generic third party. He rises to 7 slightly. It's like it goes from 5.9 to 6.7 when you add Cornel West and Jill Stein, which is weird. It's backward a little bit. But again, that is interesting because I just can't. I have to point out that so different from 2020, and I know I got to get back on track with the swings here, but so different from 2020, folks, in just a raw collection. There were some states like Ohio just was pro-Trump, period. I mean, when you weighted it, you got a more accurate picture, but Trump was like leading big in the raw. I remember I did a show on it. It was part of like kind of how the Des Moines Register poll pissed me off with Iowa. Fox News had released a Biden +5 in Ohio as we were polling during the same time, and I just called bullshit on them. And I went to the thing, I opened it up. People who were watching could see it exactly live. We had just collected 400 and something responses that night that Fox did it, and we showed you what it was. And I was playing around with the weights. I had to make it like a D +5 electorate to get Biden ahead or something. It was ridiculous, which Ohio is not. Ohio's like an R+8 presidential state right now. So Ohio was. Pennsylvania looked pretty close in raw collection. Pretty close. And it was. Michigan did not. Michigan came in all screwy. It certainly took a lot more nuance in seeing where the biases were coming from and figuring out how you could deal with the response biases and the social biases. Minnesota was like ridiculous. Wisconsin, ridiculous. Even Iowa was a little messed up, even though you'd have to be an idiot not to see how it was messed up. Well, not an idiot, just inexperienced or biased yourself. So maybe you don't see it. And this is totally different this year. That's my point. This is just very different. Ask Laura, she will tell you, and I told Sean Parnell this last night, I couldn't sleep at all. I could not sleep. I'm looking at the numbers. I can't sleep. I had numbers rolling in my brain. I had numbers rolling.
I'm like, put the numbers to sleep, Richie.
I just couldn't believe how big the shift in the country was. I just couldn't believe. I mean, I knew there was a shift and I knew it was real, but this is a really big shift. So in Minnesota, you can see that, by the way, the darker the arrow, the bigger the shift, the lighter the arrow, the slimmer the shift. So you could see like Michigan actually, 4 points, kind of modest, not on par with what I thought when you consider the national swings. Pennsylvania, -1, meaning Biden +1, 5-point shift. Now Pennsylvania is R4. It's Republican. Trump, now led by 4. In Wisconsin, we had Biden up by 2. And as of last night, it was Trump by 3. That may come in a little bit closer. We'll see. That's interesting to find out what the final numbers are. But overall, the Rust Belt poll was Biden +2 in 2020. It's now Trump +5. Not all that different from the Rust Belt poll we conducted a couple of months ago that ended up on Newsmax being talked about like crazy and ended up on Fox News too, by the way. That was like Trump plus almost 7. But this is a much, much larger sample. This is going to be interesting. Trump's leads in these Rust Belt states in the primary are massive. Absolutely massive. You have some more potentially persuadable people in phone polling. Excuse me, all these hiccups here. You have some potentially, some people who say, my mind's not fully made up. I could, potentially change my mind. In the online, I think it's less. I just want to make sure. Yes. Okay. So with Trump voters online, it's a lot less, but we're still talking about roughly 2/3 of Trump's voters saying they cannot be persuaded. On the phone, folks, it's 80%. So considering we're trying to get a lot more phones too, in Iowa, we're probably going to have like a 50-50 split. Minnesota will be pretty close to that as well. Some of the other states, more like a 70-30 or 75-25 has worked for us better, and I don't want to mess with that. But because they're smaller states, I do think that's why I've had really good luck. We have a little bit different of a sample break. So in any event, you could expect ballpark the I will not change my mind vote for Donald Trump to be ballpark around 3/4 of his voters, 70% at least. I think that's fair to say. Hold on, let me just go and give you a comparison here. Let's do DeSantis first, because I think his went up as well. But, you still have about 40% of DeSantis' voters say they can be persuaded. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 66.1%. I read it backwards. Sorry. 60 on the, what is this, my phone or online? Sorry. Hold on. Want to get it right. On the phone, about 2/3 to the dot say they can be persuaded to change their mind if they're DeSantis voters. Online, it's about 80%. All right. Now let's do Nikki Haley. And I'm only not showing you this because I have different tabs. I can't share a single tab to show you that. Nikki Haley, 84% of her support online say they can be persuaded to change their mind. 75% on the phone say they can. Vivek, and then after this, it's probably not worth going anymore because the samples are so small. It doesn't matter. Vivek on the phone, 77% say they can be persuaded to change their mind. 75% online. Very, very, very close. Let's go one more. Let's go to Chris Christie. He's next on the list anyway. Chris Christie. Let's do phone first. He's getting so small though. Christie is almost no support. So Chris Christie has it's so small, it doesn't matter. Is about 78% online that say they can change their mind. When we combine them together, we're really talking about 3/4 of his vote say they can be persuaded to change their mind. So again, what's the key takeaway here? The key takeaway is that Donald Trump's voters now are more locked in than they have ever been. This will be a new high for us. In the poll we conducted in Iowa, I believe it was when I'd have to go back and look. The last Iowa poll we did, which is cool because now we'll have a little trend. We'll have little shifting arrow graphics because we have new, multiple results in the state of Iowa. So this is going to be much higher than it has been in the past, where you just had a lot. I think it was like roughly 60 to 66%. We never in the poll saw in the phone component, we never saw 80% of Trump's voters say, I'm done. I'm locked in. That's it. I'm not moving. So just to give you an idea, months when people were trying to compare Iowa to George Bush's lead, Trump's lead in Iowa to George Bush's lead in Iowa back in 99 for the 2000 caucuses, remember months ago, Bush had about 20% of his voters who said they cannot be persuaded to change their mind. With Trump now, we're really approaching 80%. In the rest of the states, not in Iowa, they're done. And that's why I think Seth's tweet is so important, because he's right about how a caucus is conducted. In the rest of the states, it's not like that, even though Michigan is going to be a little bit weird this year. They're not going to have that environment. And in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, Minnesota, I mean, that's it, folks. I mean, they're locked in. And they're locked in with Trump in the 60s in this state. 80% of 62%. I mean, it's freaking over. You understand what I'm saying? It's over. It was over back then, according to history. If you're just being honest with yourself, empirically speaking, it was over back then. All right. Let's take a look at some of this. And then overall, because Iowa drags Trump down a little bit, overall, I think Trump is leading in the 6 by like 59 point something. And that's because Iowa pulls him down. He's only a little bit above 50 in the state of Iowa, whereas in the rest of those states, he's gone, man. Gone. Gone, daddy-o. Gone. I mean, gone. Yeah. Combined all together, it's going to be like he's at 59 or something because of Iowa. Nikki Haley will be around 9%, DeSantis around 11%, something like that. Undecided now is, back to close to 10. That'll fall probably, but someone else is like nothing, almost 3,000 interviews. It's almost nothing. Asa Hutchinson, not even a point. Binkley may round up to a point. Burgum may round up to a point. Christie may get 3. Vivek, this is not a good region for him. And I'm a little bit surprised. There are a lot of moderate MAGAs in the Rust Belt. And Vivek just was not able to break into those demographics that we pounded on a million times, saying he does well with moderates, he does well with suburbanites, but he's got to break more into that. Because Trump is now winning all of those people anyway, and he's winning them by a big margin, there's just nowhere else to go. There's just no lane here. It's getting so annoying. Honestly, it's getting annoying to say this over and over again and have people not. What's that, Laura? It's just so freaking annoying, Laura. And have people not understand and get this through their heads. First time caucus goers, 41%, man. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. When it's weighted, it's going to still be around 40%. I don't think weighting is going to take it all that much away. All right, let's try to do a little speed run here. Hi, Rich. How much do you want to bet the FBI investigation in New York City, Eric Adams, was to scare him and making heavy cuts to support the migrant policy? Yeah, you step on their toes. It doesn't matter how left-wing you are. You step on their toes. You interfere with key elements to their agenda. They come at you. Eric Adams, like, people, he was corrupt. He's doing corrupt. There's like a legitimate reason or something. Eric Adams was cooperating with the FBI. There was absolutely no reason for them to pull the stormtrooper bullshit they pulled again. The FBI is totally out of control, folks. They are a massive threat to civil liberties in this country. In case people haven't been paying attention, they're turning themselves basically into a little domestic army. And they're steamrolling everybody.
And with that being said, I love my husband, and my husband doesn't have any suicidal tendencies.
That's right. I'm trying to get to, you got the super chats in there and everything, Laura? Yeah. Dan, I can't wait until January 22nd in Iowa. I mean, that's what, Dan, it's like, it's not that, like, I agree with you. And it's not because of like some bias or something that I have towards one of the other candidates. His team decided to be horrible people. And no one ever admits they're wrong anymore. And hey, that's another thing Candace Owens was talking about with Tucker. By the way, you see them turn on Tucker. You see them turn on Rasmussen. You see them turn on Candace Owens. I mean, come on. They declared war on everybody and thought that their echo chamber was a majority. And they lie about people like crazy. They lie about people. Horrible lies. By the way, I'm like, oh, that just reminded me because of that. It's 1:37. I got to remember to say this. I don't know if Owen's listening or not. Owen, man, we got to talk. Laura said you got a story. Not you personally, but you know of one. Last year, we raised quite a bit of money for charity during the holidays when it came to particularly, my own personal crusade, which is, it doesn't have to be first responders. We just went to first responders last year, and particularly in that case, firefighters, Phoenix Strong, great organization, great people, doing great work, helping, firefighters who are battling addiction and mental illnesses and have no resources to go to. Excuse me. It doesn't have to be first responders, but a lot of these organizations they're not getting government funding. They do this based on work. Some of them have small funding, but others, you'd be surprised how much is done just through charity. And they would do so much more great work if they had that. So if you have some kind of like personal family story, more than half of this country is somebody who is dealing with, sadly, addiction in this country or other mental illnesses. And there is an organization out there that you would like to see be able to pay it forward to them. If you have a story, we'd love to hear about it. Send it to us. I'm talking about like a human interest story. And somebody that had benefited, even saved, like you think their life was saved because of the work of these people. We want to hear about it. And, of course, we pick one, but I want to start early this year because I'm glad Phoenix Strong was fantastic. It's just I want to start a little bit earlier this year. We're a little bit busier this year, and I want to have more time, sufficient time to go through everyone's stuff. Last year was a madhouse with it, and I want to do it a little bit more organized this year. So don't forget that. Send it to us. We want to hear about it. We'll do our best to raise money for him. All right, Dweej. What are your thoughts on the Tucker being a real VP contender? I think Kirk is so correct. Tucker would help juice the masculine vote. Places like Maine and Virginia could see him helping. I mean, just imagine Tucker laughing Kamala off the stage. Could you imagine Kamala Harris debating Tucker as a vice presidential candidate? I think Tucker would demolish her. I think he would demolish her. You know what? Out of the box. You want to think out of the box, think out of the box. The other side of that is that you could see Tucker and Trump as a combination ticket really, motivating Democratic voters. But folks, they're going to be motivated anyway. I pulled it back, Laura. That is a coward's argument. You're afraid. You're scared. You don't want Democrats to come out and vote. You're actually hoping and praying for low turnout. I'm not going to help your fears here any, but let me put this to bed right now. Democrats are going to vote. That's going to happen. Get over it and understand that you have to get your damn vote out. Tucker would certainly do that. Help do that. There's no doubt in my mind. Plus, it meets the Trump requirement test. I'm talking about from mine. It's not Trump's own, but whomever Trump picks, the deep state better be equally concerned with them being president. Because I just told Laura this, told Sean this the other day. I'm just staring at these numbers, not able to sleep, and in part because I'm thinking to myself, these people are dangerous. Are they really going to watch? Like, I'm legitimately afraid for this man's life now. I really am. Let me just openly say this. I am legitimately concerned for his life. The cases are getting pushed back. Biden, as I told you, yet something else I told you way before everyone, Biden is the strongest candidate. Gavin Newsom is not a strong candidate in the Rust Belt. He's not a strong candidate in the Sun Belt. He doesn't play well with these people. It would be incredibly hard if Biden's not the nominee to take away the vice president's right to be number 2. She is a non-white woman. Any white person coming along and taking that away is going to cause serious base fracture in the Democratic Party. But Biden is still stronger than her. You might have saw the CNN poll. I believe CNN, Fox, whatever. Now, there's one who got closer to Trump. She still lost to him. But I friggin' told you Gretchen Whitmer would be a problem. Whitmer and Shapiro, although Shapiro's getting hit with these sex scandals, we'll have to see how it goes for Mr. Shapiro, Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania. But, some of these Rust Belt Democratic governors, they would be much stronger than Gavin Newsom. She was still losing to Donald Trump, but we'll see. All right, let's keep going. Tristan, what does a D+4 Latino vote in Texas look like? Does it put Harris and Bexar in play? Yeah. Yeah. For people who don't know, Bexar, it's a Democratic stronghold. Some of those interesting congressional races in 22, it came out, Republicans are just not able to perform as well as Trump in these areas. And that's how Democrats were able to hold on in some places. They should never have been able to hold on. But I imagine you're talking about that recent poll, right? And by the way, did you see voter registration trends in Texas and Nevada? Florida too, but I told you I've been telling people about Florida for years. And by the way, that predated, share of the new registrations that are Hispanic who are black, just huge in some of these states. And Texas, Trump is looking at like George W. Bush level Hispanic numbers. It's massive, massive. May even put Starr in county, Tristan. May even put Starr County in Trump's column, Tristan. Hillary Clinton won that 2-1, 60-something to 30-something in 2016. But then Trump damn near won it against Biden. It was so close. He low single digits. That, if you're talking about a statewide lead for Joe Biden of only 4 points with Hispanics. Oh, you mean nationally, excuse me. Yeah. That's a big, 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 big shift in South Texas. Big shift. And by the way, what's his name? Barnes can't stand him. John Ralston in Nevada, talking about why this bluish state is getting redder. And he's talking about the silver state. He's talking about, Clark County, which is 70% of the votes statewide. Trump was carrying Clark County in the New York Times poll, in case you missed that. And they were basically tied with Hispanic vote, and Trump was romping it with the white vote. And that's why he had like a 10-point lead over Biden in Nevada. If you look at the voter registration shifts and then consider that in 22, a lot of these people didn't vote. They didn't. Then all of a sudden, the Trump plus numbers in that state don't seem terribly out of they seem plausible. All right. So in our polling, we had Lombardo doing a little bit better than Laxalt in Clark County. That's what happened. Trump lost it by about 8 or 9. But the shifts we're seeing in the Hispanic vote right now alone would be enough if they applied them on a point for point. So national to just that county. I actually tend to think that's an area where Trump probably is going to do even better than he will nationally. Like it'll show up like it shows up in South Texas and Bexar County and in Zapata and in Starr, other areas like that. There was another one you brought up too. That's Harris. Harris I think is still, because you got a lot of white liberals in Harris. So that's part of it. Let me see if I can find this. Where are you, Silver State? Where are you? There you are. I'm just curious how much the New York Times poll looks like our polling from 22. Because we had Trump up by roughly the same amount. 2024 rematch. Let's go to it. All right. Yeah, see, this was like a bloodbath. Can I show you this, guys? Because I think this is important with I know we're running low on time, and I just want to show you it real quick. If you haven't seen it before, which I know a lot of people have, but if you haven't seen it before, let me make it bigger. It's Trump v. Biden on the crosstabs. I will zoom in. Yes. Come on. All right. So we actually did have Trump leading with Hispanics. They had them tied. But you can see 48-38. Our white vote was a little bit closer. Where's county or region? Region. All right. Yeah, so we had Trump up in Washoe, and we actually did have him leading in Clark. The New York Times has him leading in Clark by 5. We had him leading in Clark by 8. A lot of undecideds. They would go to Joe Biden. So let's say he leads, or most of them would. So let's say he ekes Clark out by 2 or 3 points, and the New York Times poll looks kind of close. I do think this is right. I think I'm probably very close. It wouldn't be 10 points and not like ours and the New York Times poll shows, but it would be pretty close because the undecideds aren't enough to close it to a win. You could see Trump eking out the state by, 2 points, 3 points. You can. I mean, it's there. And you're talking about South Texas, I think another area where you would see the impact of a D+4 Hispanic vote is going to be in the Silver State, in places like Clark County, and in Arizona. Did you see the vote shares in Arizona as well? I think it was Biden +3 in the Ohio Predictive Insights poll. That's it. Biden +3. Very, very interesting. So who's right about RFK hurting Trump or not? You or Barnes? Well, I think I'm right. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I heard Roger Stone last night too. I was watching him interview David Giglio. It's where he hurts him. It's not the overall number that matters. It's where he hurts him. Richard, your Minnesota data just made my day. I'm so glad to hear that, Roddy. Roddy Mom 13. So like I said, that's a finicky, funny state. It can go from being so close, like it was in 16, to being not that close. But, again, we overstated Biden. The polling suggested Biden was running away with Minnesota, but he didn't. And by the way, all we've asked, at least with the people who voted in 2020, the overall is like real close with who did you vote for, Biden or Trump? In Minnesota, it's very, very close. In overall, it was Biden +2. That's roughly what he got. So, we're talking about these shifts. They're legit. That is real. That's happening. I'm telling you. Do I think military votes will be impacted with wars and foreign matters? The military is not what it used to be. That's an interesting question. I do think you could see the active duty military vote get more democratic for a bit, actually. There are guys like to fight wars. You just don't get promoted unless there's a whole sector of the military where you don't get promoted unless you're fighting. You want conflict. I don't think Newsom has a chance. I don't. He would also then have to take out Harris. Did Kim Reynolds not see what happened to DeSantis after he backstabbed Trump? That's what happened to her. Top dog, obedience, you get it 100%. They seem to think they were so super popular. They missed the point. If you need someone to help you get to be where you are, in the case of Reynolds and DeSantis, the both of them would have never been governor without Donald Trump. They needed him. They were losing. If you need that person to become the person you are now, even if it's true you're super popular at one point, going against that guy, what would make you think you're so popular? You only got to be popular because of that guy. What makes you think you're going to be so popular you're going to be able to take out that guy? It never occurred to you that the people who like you only like you because of him. And the minute you turn on him, the minute you're done, DeSantis's approval rating now is only +1. That's it. Reynolds has totally collapsed. Read the interviews from talk to Sean Parnell about this on his show last night. That one Hispanic woman is like, I will never vote for that SOB again. NPA Hispanics who support Trump over Biden are the ones driving down DeSantis' approval rating, along with a chunk of the Republican Party who now no longer likes him. 20% in the state of Florida almost alone of Republicans. Holy crap. 47% of NPAs who strongly disapprove of you. You don't see what that means? Backfire. Going to Dan, again, there's an article in Politico reporting Kari Lake's effort to mend fences with the McCain machine in Arizona is a sign of concern that Kari's populist message might be blunted, or a sign that the GOP establishment is willing to accept her as the best chance to win that seat. 2, the latter. In short, who's compromising with whom? I think there's a little bit of both. I just don't think she's compromising on her positions. She's certainly compromising a little bit on her attitude. I've personally talked to her about this. I know I've told you all how I think of Kari Lake as a person, not as a politician. She is not going to compromise her principles. However, she did want to reach out to these people to mend the fences. She does not put herself, contrary to what you hear from all these idiots on social media. Believe me, this woman did not want to go through this costly court case. She wanted to move on with her life, but she's doing it because she really, truly believes that's in the best interest of the voter, and that's what the voter wants her to do. Believe me, she would like to move on with her life. And I do think that John Barrasso and her hit it off. And John Barrasso being so important, number 3 in the Senate Republican Conference, that was a sign to everybody already that, listen, I met with her. I like her. Get with it. And it was also a sign, by the way, to Karen Taylor Robson, who said she was going to step down and not do anything and be basically neutral. She was lying. She was talking to people behind closed doors, trying to raise at least $10 million to attack Kari Lake, to damage her, so Gallego would win. And that was a sign to them as well that if you ever want to have any future in this party, you will not do that. I think it's more, I think it's a little bit of both, but not carry on principle. And it's more of the latter, Dan. I personally think it's a positive development. That wing of the party is literally going to die soon. Every year that goes by, more of them go away. I'm sorry, it's just reality. You have Trump leading by a huge margin, and that Senate race being very close. I do think that Kari and Trump being on the same ticket is going to be a net positive, as long as you don't have any crazy ones down below. Because that ticket, Kari did her best to make it a unity ticket. Kimberly Yee didn't do anything. She was hiding. I can't blame her. She won. I can't blame her because down ballot, there was some freaking really stupid messaging mistakes. I mean, the guy, all he had to do was shut his mouth. One in particular. All he had to do was shut the up. Ride the lead. But he couldn't. He had to keep opening his dumbass big mouth, saying the dumbest stuff known to mankind. Open yourself up to Garrett Archer, whether you agree with him or not. He's a smart guy. And every time you say something that's not true about elections, he's going to pick it up. He's going to feed it to the media. He's going to feed it to Democrats. They're going to beat you over the head with it. And Adrian Fontes is going to be the Secretary of State. And Abe Hamadeh, that hurt him. That hurt Kari Lake. Made it easier for them to rob them. Why isn't Vivek more popular? There are some people who just don't trust him. I think I did hear he went on Loomer. That's great. Well, we couldn't get him for the life of us to finally, they kept confirming, and then he wouldn't come on. So you want to reach out to him and hit him up and say, why didn't you come on Inside the Numbers? That would be great. But he was one of those guys. We've run into people like this in the past. Strung us along a little bit. You had to break into a certain group. You didn't do that. So you have some Trumpers who don't trust him, and you have Never Trump who hates him. And combined, he put himself in that category. However, though, I do think he set himself up for a brighter future. By the way, let me just say this before I move on. The remarks about, Vivek was an Obama voter. There's no evidence he voted for Obama or Hillary Clinton or whatever. I don't know what the deal is with that, but he said flat out he didn't vote for Obama in that one election anyway. Hello? You want people who once upon a time disagreed with you. That's who you want. It's so dumb to go after people over that shit. If you did that to every voter, you would never be able to win the state of Ohio. You would never be able to win Iowa. You would never be able to win Michigan. You would never be able to win Wisconsin. You would never be able to win Pennsylvania. Hell, Florida is a ton of converts that help drive that state to the right. North Carolina, same thing. By the way, fantastic job, North Carolina Republicans, registering young black voters. Fantastic job. Literally doubled it. Are Christie and Sununu close? Sununu's another one. That's the next thing. Sununu's endorsement of DeSantis is coming, and that'll do nothing but hurt Sununu. The guy was polling at like 5%, dude, when he was a speculative candidate. Just because somebody likes you as a governor does not mean they like you as president. I don't know what the hell these people, where did they study political science? Where did they study statistics? Where did they study psephology? They come up with this stuff that is not true. It's not real. It's demonstrably false, actually. And most people who know this business immediately look at them like, where did they come up with this stuff? Who taught them to be this dumb? I hope you didn't pay $100,000 or more to be this stupid. All right. Any rumblings as to who Trump's VP pick will be? Well, the rumbling this week, of course, was Tucker. You know that. I did listen to Roger Stone and Kimberly Guilfoyle, an interview over the VP picks. Those two obviously have some insight. I don't know if they have that kind of insight, but some of the stuff, there was concern I could hear in Roger Stone's voice that he could pick somebody that's not MAGA, and that is not smart. Yeah, I mean, Kristi Noem is about as non-MAGA as you can get with a VP pick. I'm telling you. And I don't think that's going to turn off Trump voters. But if you try this time to saddle voters with somebody they don't trust, because they know you only have one term in you, they know something could happen, they want MAGA as a backup. They don't want, that somebody like Kristi Noem, I think most people would eventually get behind. I don't know if you've ever seen them together. She's gotten more and more MAGA as time has gone on. She's kind of like not as bad as a Nancy Mace, but she never was really there. But she's moved kind of like you've seen Nancy Mace move. But I really do think, I'll tell you what, I'm more open to the idea of Tucker as Trump's VP as a political viable idea than I have been in a while. Lee Zeldin would be also a better pick than I initially thought, although I did put him as a good choice for a top pick. Why? I don't like congressmen being presidential candidates, but they certainly can be vice presidents. And the work they are doing in New York with Asians and Hispanics is just non-whites in general is just over the moon. Is he going to win New York? No. I mean, if he does, then oh my God. But is he going to? God, California's 13 points right now. If he's going to, but I think Lee Zeldin is the direction the party kind of wants to see people go. He didn't start out as a bomb thrower. He's not a bomb thrower. He's still a very calm guy, but he gets it, You have to, the base is going to have to feel that somebody, whoever is number two, can be trusted with the deep state. That is so important. If not, it's going to be a problem. When DeSantis drops out, do you think, or does polling show that Trump or Haley receive a bigger bump? Trump will. Trump will. Morning Consult poll, the Des Moines Register poll, all these other, whether you're talking about early states or nationally, he doesn't get a majority of DeSantis' voters, but he gets the lion's share of them, and the others kind of fracture off and go everywhere else. But these are still people who view, even the ones who say, oh, I'll go to Haley, they view Trump favorably. DeSantis' voters, all but 4.5% of his total. It's like 4.5% of the electorate. 4% actually. 4.3. I just did the math before. Really just don't like Donald Trump. That's it. The rest have different motives for supporting DeSantis, but they like Trump. So, yeah, that's one of Haley's argument, Benny. The Haley campaign says, look, if you really want to stop Trump, it's got to be somebody who doesn't have Trump voters supporting him. And then DeSantis's argument countering that has been, if I drop out, you're done because my voters are going to him. So again, they both have been making this case, I think, in more ways than one. Haley's argument is a stronger case. Why? Because she at least has appeal outside of Iowa. He doesn't anymore. He's killed it. And it doesn't matter when you realize that neither one of their arguments are valid, that they can beat Trump. Neither one can actually beat him. So, do you think Vivek will gain at all? He seems like he's winning the debates, and in the media, it seems to be he's in second place. He's not even in second place at this point. He's fallen now, back to fourth, nationally anyway. Let me look and see where he is. Come on. I was just there not long ago. Why the hell can't I find it? Trump plus 52. That's here. Well, it's Florida. Come on, National Republican poll. Come on. 2024 Republican nomination. Trump plus 48. Yeah, Vivek is now in fourth in the RCP average. DeSantis is in second, still holding on to it. Haley's in third. Ramaswamy's in fourth. In the early states, though, DeSantis is not in second anymore. He's going to, if this keeps up in the early states, yeah. If this keeps up in the early states, he's out. Biden's going to win the write-in campaign he's running in the primary in New Hampshire. He's not on the ballot in New Hampshire. They're pissed. Both, by the way, Democrats in Iowa are furious. Participation is probably going to be pretty pathetic. They were robbed of their first in the nation contest status, and they're very angry. The comments are just, it's sad. It's sad what they did. I feel bad for them. I do. But Vivek did not break into those groups we were talking about. So that's why he hasn't been able to do it. I am running, as his Luck Doolittle, I am running for county chair of Jefferson County in Western PA. And I was wondering if you guys would ever work with the county to help us target people we need to target in order to get more registrations and more votes. Yeah, I sure would. That's locals. Do the local support, and Laura and I, one of us will get back to you. Absolutely. Question for Rich. Do you believe, according to the latest poll, that Kari Lake is down to the open borders Democrat? And what Rasmussen's been saying with Obama? I don't know what Rasmussen's doing. They're either doing something, having some noise right now, which is possible, or they're right and Biden's up by 4. I don't think so. However, one poll, which was a YouGov data set and usually a very, very left-wing poll, I want to say it was, had Biden's approval like -2. That was an outlier. They had higher than Rasmussen's. I'll tell you right now, in the Rust Belt, Biden's approval is looking real bad. Let me show you this real quick. Because you can't be this negative in the Rust Belt and be doing better in the rest of the country. It's just not the case. So, by the way, the Rust Belt poll is, Biden 1.7. Overall, that's what it was. Who did you vote for in 2020? It was Biden plus 7. And now he's just getting crushed. Let me show you this. Is this the right one? Let me just make sure it is. Again, I don't know why I can't add the damn phone interviews to it. It's not like registering the phone interviews. This is the unweighted result. I filtered out people who just aren't done yet. We have a ton of people still taking it too. It's not in order. If we were to, let's put it in order. Layout options.
You're so happy.
So there you can see it. Okay. This is the original order. Strongly disapprove in the raw is 41%. There's missing a lot of interviews though from the phone. I'll show you the phone as well though. Somewhat disapprove, 16%. Only 15% strongly approve and 23.8% somewhat approve. So, his approval rating is really bad in the Rust Belt. it's less than 40%. His disapproval rating is really bad. Folks, that's really bad. That's a 57% disapproval rating across the 6 Rust Belt states. That's awful. And in the phone component, let's see, which is more educated, by the way. Hold on. I don't think it's better, but it ain't that much better. It isn't that much better. Hold on. Put it back. Oh my God. It looks like a strongly disapprove is even worse in the phone. Hold on. Oh yeah. I mean, it's crap. It's better approval overall, but a strongly disapprove is really bad. All right. So, and this is 1,000-something responses. 48.4% strongly disapprove, 6.1% somewhat disapprove. Strongly approve is a little higher than in the online, 24.3. Somewhat disapprove, 19.5. Why is that though? Again, I know you can't see it, but let me scroll down and go to education. Online is almost completely stratified, and education looks great. But this is just awful. High school is like 5 points less than it should be, 6 points less than it should be. Graduate is 8 points higher than it should be. So think about that when we forget about waiting. If we do decide to do stratification, post stratification, this is just going to be awful for Joe Biden. Awful. And I mean, a friggin' bachelor's degree is 30-something%. That's not how the Rust Belt is. All right. So it's really, really, really bad news. And because of that, I just don't see how on earth his national approval rating could be that high. Large samples in polling, bigger is better. And I can't tell you how many disgusting responses. Americans are so funny. Like, hey, this is Rich from Big Data Poll. Ew, bro, don't call me talking about how big your poll is. Goodbye. Right, Laura? Americans are funny people, really, and disgusting. But I'm like, it's very like we've never heard that before. Haha. The AI is awesome. Awesome when it comes to polling. Just absolutely awesome. I wish that Congress would change the laws, because technically an agent can contact someone personally and say, hey, you just have a conversation with the AI. But definitely through texting, it's just incredible. I was showing my son, I was working late, and my son got done with a football game, this high school, and he came to see what I was up to, and he was watching it with me, and he was like, oh my God, it sounds just like you. It sounds, Dad, it even says folks, hey folks. Or if it's just crazy, or all the best, right? I mean, stupid little things. Yeah. I'm like, stupid little stuff. It really sounded incredibly like, oh, I'm sorry, I think you got the wrong number. But that's okay. I mean, if you're registered and eligible to vote in either Iowa, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, you are more than welcome to take it. Sorry about the mistake or whatever. Unfortunately, the voter records can be inaccurate, and they're dirty. They don't clean them up. It actually said dirty. Remember?
I have to say it's nicer than us, though.
It is nicer. It is.
It's more polite.
Even though it uses sometimes some of the words that, not sometimes, a lot. It used dirty to, those voter rolls are dirty and we're trying to clean them up. Sorry for the inconvenience. But while we got you, can you take a couple of minutes? I mean, wow. At first, I had a major problem with the ethics of this. I really did. But if you use it limited, like I am, because it can be unchained, if I'm using it limited, it's just incredible. It's remarkable. So somebody needs to tell Scott Adams, yeah, Scott. Yeah, man. It can mimic you. Creepy. Because he's like, I wonder if AI has got the potential one day. And I'm like, one day? This thing, it's not a robo Rich running around, being like cyborg Rich, but I'm talking about the computer, the coding itself. It's there, man. It's there. I'm really confused. Who's a Haley supporter? She's literally Lindsey Graham, except she doesn't quit his jobs. It's funny. A lot of them, they're not really Republican. I'll tell you that. Her support is not really Republican. It's like, super, super, moderate, older, the boomer generation who thought it was all right to send younger people to go fight in wars over lies they believed. I'm sorry. There's that part of the Republican Party. It's just not a huge part anymore. And I understand why there are some people who want to move on from Donald Trump, and they just don't get, though. And if you were to sit them down and explain to them, like, Nikki Haley has no chance, you're going to lose, then they would vote for Donald Trump. So that's the thing. Trump is the only one who has voters who, and by any meaningful or statistically significant size of them, say that it's like, I would only vote for this person. Even people who are voting against Trump right now, the majority of them still very much like Donald Trump. That's the thing. That's been the problem these people have suffered all along. They're very loud on Twitter, but they're not representative at all. They're very loud, tiny minority. That was the same thing. I answered that one already. I'm here, boss. Good morning. Let's see. Oh, sorry. That was just a hello. Okay. And you're welcome. And also, thank you. I get a high and tight at least twice a year. Yep. We see the trends with new registered Black and Hispanic voters and now favor the GOP. Can the GOP continue this trend after Trump leaves politics? NL on YouTube. Fantastic. I don't think so. Not unless, what's his name? Parnell was talking to that guy who ran. He was a Green Beret. He ran against Boozman in Arkansas in 22 primary. He lost, but they gave him a run. I agree with him, though, that I think that you could still be bullish on that in the long term because of what I just said. That other wing of the party that chased away non-whites, they're going to be gone soon. MAGA is younger. That is the energy and the future of the party. The rest of them are just clinging on for nothing. But how long will it go? I don't know. Without Trump, they have a real problem. They can't get people to the polls, and they cannot they don't earn the support of these people. I mean, you go to any of these newly converted non-white voters that are voting for Trump over Biden, and you ask them if they like Republicans, and they'll tell you flat out, F those people. Right, Laura? There are a couple of people we'll engage with more, and we'll do it personally. Like, Laura and I will literally hijack the interaction and talk with these people more. There's just no way they're going to be Republicans unless this party changes to what he is and not what they remember. They're just never going to be Republicans. Though I said to Laura, I said, this is like a Reagan phenomena where you have certain people who said, yeah, I love Ronald Reagan. I can hate Republicans. That's the way. This is what it's feeling like. Are mixed heritages becoming a large enough group that they are beginning to affect polling weighting, or is that typically covered by whatever the mixed heritage person considers their dominant heritage to be? What a great question, Sandy Pauls. What a great question. That's weeping on the ad, like the other stuff like that. But listen, like, I'm 50% Italian, I'm 50% Greek. I identify as an Italian all the time. There's always a dominant one, not always, but majority there still is. I watch the census very carefully on stuff like this. There's still that dominance, and then it's more than ethnicity too, like mixed race. That's why we've begun to say like Hispanic non-white, because there are Hispanics who will identify as white, and it's just a really, really good question. It's something we're going to have to look at, and we do and have been for a long time, because it absolutely can screw up weighting at some point if we're not careful. Chance Crooked Joe dumps Kamala for Crooked Hillary. Not good. It's like I said, you can't remove a non-white first non-white VP. You just can't take her out of the equation. How do you think? Oh, I asked them that already. What state best to choose the VP pick from strategically? What a great question. I don't know that there's a best one, but there's ones that are better than others for sure. I mean, there's also limited evidence that VP candidates helped the top of the ticket. Paul Ryan didn't. Paul Ryan, his ticket with Romney got massacred in the 1st congressional district. Barack Obama and Joe Biden drummed them in Paul Ryan's own district area in Racine, his backyard. But they were able to, but Ryan was reelected handily. The best case is Johnson being on JFK's ticket for Texas. Of course, there's other stuff that was shenanigans that Johnson pulled. But for the most part, you know, in academia, and I tackled this, I remember back in college, is very, very, very little evidence. And now it can't hurt, but it doesn't always help. I just don't think, sometimes the pick is better suited to cover more of like national concerns than an individual state. But that's why like a Ron Johnson in Wisconsin would be a really good pick. It would be a really good pick. And there are others, but you know, it could be outweighed by other national concerns. The deal that Mike Johnson made for the continuing resolution is awful. It is temporary, however, but this is what I was worried about. This is what Sean Parnell and I tried to tell people over and over again. Mike Johnson is a great guy and he's super MAGA. He doesn't have the conference to fight. If you want him to fight better, you're going to need better congressional people. He doesn't have it. And I was worried, as somebody who knows him and likes him, that he's going to be destroyed over this. You know, let me see. What are you talking about? How can signature match work when they have us do digital signatures on an iPad? Yeah, I mean, they'll look over the prior digital signature when you sign for your license. That's done on the same kind of format. So, or at least it is in many states now. But yes, excuse me. The first time I ever signed in Florida, it didn't look like my last one on the book. And she actually busted my balls over it. And I said, that is not because it's not my signature. It's because I'm writing on a stupid pad. And then over the years, they'll, you know, match it to that. Signature verification is a bit of a joke, as we have talked about before. It's obviously easily exploitable, and it doesn't matter if people aren't following the laws and the procedures, as we saw in Michigan, Arizona, lots of places. That's why I'm for a fingerprint. And if we can use our finger to open up our iMac or our iPhone, we could use our fingerprint, which the state has anyway, to verify who we are to vote. All right.
And then we also do facial recognition. Let's be real, for passwords and whatnot.
That's right.
Like, I don't want to hear that argument.
That's right. So we're so okay with using this for like personal technology bullshit, but we don't think that election integrity is important enough to use this technology for. This is crazy. Crazy. Oh wow, it's 2:20, but that's okay. We're on the last one. Do you think DeSantis will risk being publicly spanked in his own state of Florida? Jonathan, at this point, I think that I've heard from way too many people that he is just waiting for Donald Trump to be thrown in jail, to violate some kind of gag order and be held in behind bars, to be convicted. Maybe they'll race these cases up. That's why I think the thinking may have changed. I still do think that they will argue at the convention that they have to unbind the delegates. That's what he meant in that interview that I shared a couple weeks ago that Jack Posobiec and I made a thing about. He was not talking about you, the voters, shouldn't nominate. He said the party should not allow him to be the president. So he knows damn well as a lawyer what the timeline looks like. He was not talking to the voter. I don't know. Ultimately, never back down. It's going to have to continue to bankroll him. I just don't know. They have wasted a lot of money, folks. They have wasted a lot of people's money, and there's going to be a lot of people who are very upset. So I've been told that, that's what he's doing, waiting and biding his time. And I know they're telling the truth. So don't be surprised if he goes with the humiliation. Marco Rubio did. This is even worse than that, but don't be surprised. I'm telling you that when we first started seeing Trump widen his lead in Florida, I tried to show one of his advisors, who was a friend of mine, and I tried to explain to him. He's like, this will never hold. He's going to win his own state. They believed he was back then going to shift the polls 25, 30 points. I don't know what to tell you guys. I know it's stupid. And like, for anyone with a brain, you're like, but how, Rich, but how? That's what they think. But right now, don't get me wrong. They want that win in Iowa. They do. But don't get me wrong. They are not just counting on that. This is now the lawfare strategy went to the indictment strategy. Then it evolved into the incarceration strategy, the felony strategy. It's disgusting. And by the way, that's not because of my politics. That's because of my values as a person. That's disgusting. And apparently, most people agree with me. Obviously, most people agree with me. Otherwise, he would never be in the position he's in. And right, if he ever did that, you're talking about a 30% drop off in the, yep, you're right. And Elise Stefanik was like, yes! You're talking about, Chris, if that was to happen, you're talking about a 30% drop off in Republican turnout. Historically high drop off and historically high third party support. You're talking about Joe Biden going from being one of the most vulnerable presidents ever. Jimmy Carter may have been. He's far more vulnerable than Trump was. You're going from that to being reelected easily. So it would be a disaster. All right. Don't forget, book club on Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Emerging Republican Majority. We have the new copy as well, but you can also get I like the original edition. Although I'm reading the new edition while we're in book club. That would be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do have to discuss about what we're going to do with the book club's timing. Always, as of course, share the Public Polling Project far and wide, please. This was huge. All right. So we are way behind now. All right. So do that. Let's get more people involved and be really cool. I think this project is going to have a huge splash. I think this is going to make a very big splash. It's a huge poll. So I think it's going to make a huge splash. What else? Am I missing anything? We'll see if we don't talk to you guys before Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. But I totally expect to talk to you guys before Thanksgiving. And of course, we'll have the show Monday. What else, Laura? What else? What am I missing here? I think that's it. No, maybe not. But don't forget, special thanks, of course, to the Wellness Company, sponsor of today's show, twc.health/TPP. All right, to get your wellness emergency kits, all of those emergency prescription medications. We're very, 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 it's not evasive. The interview are all crucial. Everybody should have these available to them in their house. All right. Without a doubt, whether it's another pandemic or shortages, there's no excuse. And the price is more than fair for all of those life-saving drugs. I'm not missing anything, right? I think that's it. Don't forget to sign up on Locals. You'll get everything first. peoplespundit.locals.com. Oh, Locals, there was an update to our little thingamabobber. It's not going to be a show, but you're going to see me pop on there like I've been telling you I wanted to do. Well, it's actually working now. The update with the audio. You're going to see some of our graphics. They're not going to be real graphics.
We shall see.
Yeah, but
I'll believe it when I see it.
I know Laura says it too, but no, I'm going to do it. I need to try to. I'm going to screw up a lot. I'm just telling you guys.
No,
I
that's what
am.
I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
not that we're not doing it. I'm saying I'll
Gonna
believe
screw
it
up.
when it actually works.
I may not even get the buy rate or the
Yeah.
the first time. How many frames per second? Locals is like, oh, I'll do this, but we usually shoot in full HD, and I don't know how. Well, we're gonna find out, right? So you'll see me pop in and out. It won't be an announcement or anything. It'll literally just go live, and then I'll try to do it with it. But you can come in and mock me if you want when I do. 3 p.m. Don't miss it. Sunday. All the best. Look at those numbers. My God. My God. Deadlines, December 12th. December 12th. Deuces. Thank you, guys.